Welcome to Drips of Consciousness. I am Christel Crawford, and you are invited to a completely different world where my epiphanies in consciousness could change everything for you. One of the concepts that was introduced to me early on in my Access Consciousness journey was a question that went like, what if 98% of your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions weren't actually yours? And I was coming out of, almost 40 years of functioning dynamically from thoughts and feelings and emotions. And I mean, if you are any kind of new to these Access Consciousness tools, or even if you're not, that's the way we're taught to. There is no other way to live in the world. In fact, being a functional person in the world means you feel your feelings and you express them and you communicate well and you be a healthy person. There's this concept that was developed about what being mentally healthy means. And, I was on the progressive edge of that, I'd say, in terms of people. I was, happy to go to therapy and talk about my problem. I saw psychiatrists. I did things that a lot of people, I'm going to say normal, quote unquote, normal people didn't do. And yet my life wasn't working. I've been married twice. I was in two different kinds of relationships. Both relationships didn't work for their individual reasons. And in my second marriage was so unhappy that I literally was seconds away from running a bath, sitting in it, and drinking enough alcohol till I blacked out so that I drowned. I mean, I remember just so distinctly feeling like I just couldn't figure out how to be happy. And so I'm skipping a lot of time frames here, but for the sake of the illustration, when I went to my first Access Consciousness class, and one of the first pieces of information they gave me, or they asked me, was like, well, hey, what if 98% of what actually goes on in your head isn't yours? All I knew is that I felt lighter. I didn't know. That's all I knew. And the very first thing that somebody ever invited me to look at is what's light for you is true for you, and what's heavy is a lie. And so this question made me feel lighter, and I was like, wow, what? And so what happened in my world is that I started looking at how much feeling I actually did on a day-to-day basis, and I know that I couldn't even see it then, because I still find it now, and it's 5 years later after being a fucking Olympian with these tools, using them constantly 24/7. But it was a staggering amount of thoughts and feelings and emotions that went through my head on a moment by moment basis. And I'm like, when I started applying, what if this staggering amount of stuff isn't mine, my whole world started shifting on its axis. And so the tool that follows that you get to start to use if you're willing, goes like this: that for every single thought and every single emotion, every single point of view, every single fact that comes through your world, because you may not be as emotional a person, you may be more of a fact person, but facts are also just fixed points of view, and they become a limitation because you can't see around what you've already decided is so. So there, same with feelings. Like once you go to hurt feelings, you can't see around your hurt feelings. Once you go to disappointment, you can't see around the disappointment. You have to now try to fix or solve the thing based on a thing. And the whole point of Access Consciousness is, what could you actually be aware of that goes beyond what you've decided is so? And so thoughts, feelings, and emotions keep you in the decisions of what is so. This is so. You hurt my feelings. That is so, right? And so anyway, so what this does is that the tool and the way it goes, if you'd like to use it, is just as a start for 3 full days. For every single thought and feeling and emotion and fixed point of view that comes through your world, you ask it, who do you belong to? Are you mine, or are you someone else's? And this is an interesting game to play with yourself. So if you get that it's yours, then the thing to do is actually to destroy and uncreate everywhere you bought it. And I'll go into that a little bit more. And if you get that it's not yours, you just return to sender with consciousness attached. And there's a lot behind this. I mean, if you look into quantum physics, if you've studied any of that, what you know is that everything is energy. And everything's connected. If everything is energy, energy has no boundaries and no separation. It just goes where it wants. It is what it is. It connects. It connects, even though we decide things are separate, like the wall is separate from the couch and the couch is separate from the table. In truth, everything is made up of the same materials and all of its energy. So some of it has solidified into different forms, which is what we do with fixed points of view. And other things are more fluid, like air. But in reality, every single molecule comprising anything is 99% space. So there is no separation. So when you're returning a point of view to sender with consciousness attached, it isn't as separate as it sounds. You're actually just letting it go from your world as something that's yours. And you're putting seeds of consciousness back into a very unconscious soup of points of view. But but let's say like you have a thought and you go, well, who does this belong to, me or someone else? And you're like, well, that's my thought for sure. And I did that a lot in the beginning. I'm like, no, that's mine. Pock and pod where you bought it. Okay. But it's mine. It originated with me, right? Well, did it? And so this additional, what could be a concept or you got to see if it's true for you thing of, well, am I a finite being? Am I a lump of clay on the earth, or am I an infinite being? Which one makes me feel lighter? And I'm like, oh, infinite being for me is way lighter. Okay, well, would an infinite being have a feeling? Yes or no? No. Would an infinite being have a thought? Yes or no? No. Would they pick up on them? Sure. Would they buy them as, would they function from thoughts, feelings, and emotions, or would they just be and choose and create? And am I a finite being, or am I an infinite being? Okay, I'm an infinite being. Okay, fine. So then it isn't mine. I did buy it. I picked it up. I made it mine. I functioned from it. So everywhere I did that, everything that is, I destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And you can get more info on that crazy statement at theclearingstatement.com if you'd like. But so what started to happen for me was using this tool started creating a lot more space in my head. And so I want to invite you to use it for every single thought, feeling, and emotion and point of view that you have, just to see what it does for you. It's very effective if you do it for like a condensed period of time, because one of the things that happens if you do it for 3 days, well, first of all, you'll forget, and then you'll remember again, and then you'll forget, and you'll remember again. But at the end of 3 days, you'll be a walking, talking meditation. And then it just opens up so much space for what you can actually choose and create next that you may not have had access to before. Thank you so much for listening to this show. My target is to make consciousness easy to find. So if you enjoyed this, please leave a 5-star review, and also share this with a friend who you know might be looking for more consciousness in their life. You can visit me on ChristelJoyCrawford.com, and to learn more about the incredible, life-changing tools of Access Consciousness, go to accessconsciousness.com and theclearingstatement.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast.